All right, we will get things rolling. So thank you so much for being here today at this live event on regarding navigating the hybrid security landscape. We're excited to bring you some great information. My name is Heidi Flagg. I'm the marketing director here at Smart Deploy, part of PDQ.com, and I'll be your MC today. We have some fantastic panelists that I will introduce here. Our special guest today is Fulvio Mazza, the Director of Technology at Brean Capital, which is a New York-based investment bank with locations all across the U.S. Fulvio has been with the firm for more than a decade and playing a key role in building and managing its entire IT infrastructure with his team. We're very excited to have him here today to share his experience and thoughts on remote endpoint security in today's environment. Thanks for being here, Fulvio.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
And joining us from PDQ HQ, we have Josh McElprang. Josh is the Director of Service Operations at PDQ.com, and Josh has been with PDQ for 6 years, and prior to joining, he led teams for over a decade in infrastructure, support, and service across a variety of industries, including software, financial services, healthcare, construction, and gaming. Thanks for taking the time to be here, Josh.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You bet. We also have Austin Delaney, sales engineer for Smart Deploy. Austin's joining us from sunny Phoenix today. He's on vacation with his family, so thanks for taking the time, Austin.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Austin spent 7 years providing client support for a major MSP specializing in Office 365 service, and today he works directly with IT techs, helping them through a successful proof of concept with Smart Deploy. And last but not least, we have Spencer Dunford, 15-year Smart Deploy team member and currently the head of sales for Smart Deploy and PDQ. Spencer has worked with thousands of IT teams through the years to find solutions to highly complex and unique challenges in a variety of environments. So thanks for being here today, Spencer.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. Welcome, everybody.
And I'll just run through a few quick housekeeping items before we jump into today's content. This is a 30-minute event. We're going to try really hard to keep it to that, including some Q&A time at the end. So please use the questions box within GoToWebinar if you have any questions that come up, and we'll address those at the end. We are also recording this event, so if for some reason you need to drop, that's totally okay. Watch your inbox for a link to the recording later this week. We are also raffling off a Smart Deploy subscription today to one lucky attendee, so stay tuned for, toward the end of the event to find out who the winner of that is. We also have some poll questions that we might be popping throughout the event today, so keep an eye out for those and respond to those if you see one of those pop up. And with that, I will hand things over to Spencer to get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Heidi. So just a little bit of company overview about Smart Deploy for those of you that are on today's webinar that aren't familiar with Smart Deploy. We actually got started as a pure play consulting business almost 20 years ago, working with some of the largest technology companies in the country. Initially, we started doing a lot on the virtualization front, specifically on client-side virtualization. We were early adopters and big fans of virtualization, and we continue to use it every place it makes sense, but especially bullish kind of on the client side and leveraging that. The software business got spun up because we started solving some of these consulting engagements with software rather than putting more people and human capital at these challenges. And we were doing a lot of provisioning of virtual machines, optimizing them, and updating them and getting them out into field. And did that to hundreds of thousands of companies, and then realized, it would be actually cool if we could treat hardware the same way. And of course, the tough part is trying to deal with all of the device drivers and hardware-specific settings, especially from those of you coming from maybe a ghost world of doing sector-based imaging, for instance. Kind of not so possible on that front. So that's where we started shipping this product in 2009. We've been making a lot of updates from those early days, but that's really where we started with the core goal of hardware-independent imaging, and one device could work on everything. We've also tried to keep everything simple, secure, and pretty damn quick, and that falls really well with our partnership and teaming up with PDQ. Those of you may know we were acquired the first part of 2022 with the PDQ team, and have already seen a bunch of joint success with mutual customers and a lot of delighters. So we intend on continuing down that path together as we build out more features and and provide more capabilities from a full IT lifecycle management perspective. I'm going to pop on to the next slide. Something else to consider as we've moved to this hybrid workforce is a lot more adoption from cloud. One of our first customers required offline capability and doing imaging in dark sites. So we've never forgotten that, and you could use Smart Deploy all the way from the lowest common denominator, dark site, to use your existing infrastructure and your SAN and your network and manage that way. But a lot of customers, especially if they're working remotely and managing end users' devices that are at home and maybe for the foreseeable future, needed alternatives. And so our cloud capability has really taken off over the last 2-3 years in terms of adoption and use. So you can leverage Google Drive, OneDrive for Business, those types of providers, and do your IT lifecycle management projects with Smart Deploy in that way. So just a quick overview about Smart Deploy. I hope that backgrounder helps. I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in that poll, and we will pass things off on to Josh to pick it up from there.
Awesome. Thanks, Spencer. So the current IT landscape has changed quite a bit over the last few years, even in industries that have been typically really slow to react. Earlier this year, PDQ put out a state of sysadmin, and I wanted to share some of the numbers that I found were really interesting. Between 48 and 58% of sysadmins surveyed responded that at least 25% of their company's workforce was work from home. This trend obviously started in early 2020, and from all accounts, it looks to stay. Gone are kind of the days of that central HQ office, like that hub and spoke architecture, and really what we have is just a smattering of ingress and egress into the corporate network with devices spanning all different types. That same chain of events that sent everybody to work from home also introduced even more complexities in the sysadmin operator's landscape. Supply chain issues are one of them. Now hardware lead times are measured in quarters and months and not weeks like they used to be. This has led to kind of a lack of a homogeneous hardware and is like lasting ripple-on effects for years to come. Many organizations are going to continue to feel this for the next foreseeable future. Next slide. So in this new kind of complex environment that we find ourselves in, the question obviously becomes, how do we keep these endpoints secure? I've got users at home, I've got users in a coffee shop on vacation, kind of like we are today, right? I'm at HQ, but everyone else is spread throughout the world. A couple of those key points we want to talk about is two-factor or multi-factor authentication. This is kind of a no-brainer. Not only do you have something, but you need to know something, so a password and maybe a token. VPN security is another one of those things, not only just validating the user connecting, but also the device that's connecting. Bring your own device has always been interesting to me. I think it brings a whole lot to the table as far as users being able to pick the hardware they want. But from an IT perspective, this has been crazy complex. You can have any type of hardware that is now on your network, and you need to be able to manage it. Above all else, educating users is a critically important component. Users are almost always the source of any type of breach. And probably the most obvious point here is operational considerations in up-to-date systems and patches. With so many points of ingress and egress into corporate networks, and the disparate hardware that's out there, on top of that, all of the SaaS applications, this is just, patching is paramount to any organization. Next slide. So what I want to talk about is a couple of things that PDQ specifically has done to help keep our users secure. And they're going to be a little bit out of the box. One of those is using tools that we already have in our inventory, like Slack. Off the bat, you probably wouldn't think Slack is a security tool, but the way that we've leveraged it makes it a security tool. For example, we adopted Slack religiously. Everyone lives and kind of breathes by Slack at PDQ. The highly engaging platform not only makes real-time collaboration effective, but we also use it to increase our security posture as a second means of communication. So if I get an email that looks a little funny, I can send a DM to that person to validate that it's real. I have webhooks that fire off and let me know of changes in the environment in real time. and it just allows us to increase our security posture tremendously. Another thing that we're doing to keep security top of mind is managed security awareness training. Picking a vendor for this or doing this yourself, I think, is one of the best things that you can do as an admin today, is try and engage with your users in a way that keeps security top of mind but isn't mind-numbing and boring. I would couple that with managed phishing campaigns, which are always fun to see who clicks the link, and then follow that up with some training on those users that may need it. Next slide. Well, so for the most obvious point that I'll probably make today is the cloud is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. If you look at the numbers over the last 3 years, it's just a steady up and to the right graph of more cloud adoption. And this is even in industries that have typically been slow. So the question then becomes, after we're talking about it, well, if cloud's here and we've been talking about security, what does that actually look like? Next slide. So cloud security considerations are just a superset of what RT professionals would be used to be seeing in on-prem in the network. With points of ingress and egress increasing at dramatic rates, the 3 things that really come top of mind for me are a security culture. Going back to how that managed security awareness training, having your users engaged is paramount. Obviously, hardware driver management, patch management. Not only do you have to manage your points of egress are now your end users' networks at home or wherever it might be. So the devices that they are accessing your network in are really more important than ever to be patched. And then obviously IT tooling. In summation, for everything today, IT teams need to be quick to respond to changing environments, effectively communicate, and be able to deploy any and everything very, very quickly. With that, I'll hand the rest of the time over to Fulvio. Thanks for listening.
I completely agree with everything you just said as far as user education, myriad of devices to tend with. To give you a little historical reference, we started, aging me a little bit, with Symantec Ghost 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And unfortunately, for, let's say, a decade, they had promised us the upgrades of a new and improved vendor agnostic, more limber use, and they never kept it until at some point there were even blogs online reporting it as abandonware, and that was pretty scary. So we ended up having to start building computers from scratch, incredibly time-consuming. I mean, it takes, for a high level of customization and compliance requirements in our financial sector, it takes 5 to 8 hours per machine. So imaging was always a requirement. Finally, we found ourselves with Smart Deploy. We've been with them for quite a few years, actually. Changed versioning, of course, and now it's with cloud deployment, wireless agnostic. I mean, we've been rolling them out like candy at the theater. Really, really interesting stuff. And of course, the proliferation of endpoints has been a huge issue. The pandemic, people all of a sudden not even wanted to work from home. They wanted to have a full setup in every one of their homes. Some of our more senior traders and salespeople have the summer home. They have the winter home. They have the cabin. And we had to build outposts with makeshift DSL connections. Very difficult to manage. This tool alone saved us tons of time and, more importantly, tons of money, because having to ship the computer into the office and then shipping it out to one of these locations, doubling costs right then and there. This paid for itself eventually as the cost of shipping and time reduced. We were able to do all of this in a pinch. We were able to do all of this remotely. And let's not leave out the fact that it's more sanitary not to touch computers, laptops, desktops alike, peripherals, keyboards, mice, you name it, and then sending it out. God forbid someone was doing it, even though secluded in an office with all the ventilation in the world, was sick. touching these things would bring potential infections later on. So another major point during the pandemic was that, we just, frankly, were able to deploy things in a pinch, directly shipped in from a manufacturer, which we wouldn't entrust with building our long-term servicing channel with a number of .NET environments built in. Again, all compliance requirements and our highly sophisticated, customized operating system deployment. It's not just install Microsoft and see you later. There's a lot of pieces involved. Security modules alone, I mean, multi-factor authentication is something we force even on application management for email. They can't do anything in our environment without having a VPN connection, multi-factor. So security was very important. Giving this type of information out to manufacturers to install was potentially opening a security Pandora's box, which we did not want to do. So ultimately, it was very important for us to be able to rely on this that even allowed you to shoot out an image to some user at home's laptop on wireless. It was huge. When that piece was added, it was massive, because then you wouldn't have to force people to run 100-foot wires through their home or Ethernet over power, you name it. The technologies that we had to contend with the advent of a wireless option, huge deal. I couldn't stress that any less. We are a small company, 150 people. We have about 500 endpoints to manage. I mean, it got crazy. I mean, if you add up all the shipping costs, you see immediately how investing in a product like this one, absolutely paramount. And to top it all off, as a grand bow on top, let's think about all the temporary employees that come in and use the computer only for a short period of time. We have an onslaught of summer interns coming in, summer associates for the banking group. They come in only for a month or two. They leave. The computer needs to be sanitized, and not just with wipes. You need to reinstall the operating system. So boom, immediately fresh coat of paint on top of that. Whatever they were doing, completely deleted, and allows us to give the computer to someone else without having a dozen profiles installed on it that don't even serve any purpose and potentially have latent infections, cybersecurity threat. I mean, the sophistication and requirement that we are forced, we demand of ourselves and are forced from the regulatory agencies is really what we want to achieve every single time. And the partnership with Smart Deploy has been one of the most important ones. In hindsight, considering all the difficulties with the unforeseen difficulties with the pandemic, an absolute must. I think I'll pass it on to the next panelist now. Thank you very much again, and I will answer any questions if needed.
That's awesome. Love your story. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'm just going to hop in and dive in a little bit more specifically about Smart Deploy, and before I kick it over to Austin and he kind of demos things. So if we go one more slide forward, if we could, Austin. There you go. Perfect. So how this works is the IT admin gets a console machine, and on that console machine, they build out everything that you're going to need to use and do with Smart Deploy to manage those endpoints. And we give customers a really unique ability to manage the important stuff in an efficient way. Important stuff meaning you can manage all of your drivers sort of independent from the image itself. And the image contain just the OS and patch level you like. It can also contain a number of applications. Customers do use it both ways depending on what they want. Commonly, they can put a bunch of apps in the image and it's all there, or do scripted installs, or push apps after the fact. And then the last piece there is obviously the user data. So you can migrate users' data as part of a re-imaging too. So the scenario is mail a replacement machine to a home user, and as part of the imaging process, it can pull data from the old machine, put it on the new one, and all this can happen zero touch, which, as Fulvio mentioned, is not only important from a shipping cost and time perspective, but in the area where you're literally concerned about humans and germs, like that's a sanitary, safe way to go about your business, and has really helped customers. So in this way, things are separated out. If you want to think about it like layers, or giving customers a good ability to manage these pieces independently, we can do all that. And then of course, tie this in from an on-prem deployment if you want, just a straight USB stick if you like, or leverage the good old internet and do things with your Google Drive account, for example. And then everything comes down to the endpoint consistently every time. If you want to move on, next slide, please. So customers really love Smart Deploy because it's simple, it's reliable, it's efficient, it's secure, it's checking a compliance box for IT teams. And the security story is very strong these days, and we're starting to see people even sort of kind of live and die by how compliant their devices are. And using Smart Deploy to keep things, the OS up to date, keep images clean, keep devices patched, keep their drivers up to date, keep applications current, all those kinds of things. If you think about the full IT lifecycle management picture, yes, Smart Deploy, we started out on the imaging phase, but as we get to these more sophisticated tasks and truly keeping that live endpoint going all the time, that's really what we're trying to do here with Smart Deploy. And I think you'll see as this plays out next with Austin's demo.
All right. So my name is Austin. I'm one of the sales engineers over here at Smart Deploy. So I hope we have the opportunity to work together kind of going forward, where my door is open certainly. But today we'll be going through a few of the more popular kind of cloud-based or remote-based features that we have here. So we'll be going through a short little overview of some of those to kind of get to set the tone here. So this is what the console looks like here, just kind of a brief overview point. This is where you would start. Immediately you would jump into the computer management piece here. So from here, this is where you'd be able to see all the different groups. So if you have different people around the world, different teams, different wherever they are, you could stratify them by group. So once you click into one of those, you would see a list of all the different machines that is in that group, or in this case, all the machines in general. And if you can just kind of see there really quick, you might see that there's a different connection type. Now, what's really cool about that is wherever you are, it will dynamically shift. Now, when I'm in the office, it'll say local. When I'm on vacation, say, down in Phoenix, then it would say cloud. And that's kind of cool because it can dynamically change. It's based on an agent. You either use the local network for a host name, or you can switch over to a feature we call Cloud Broker. And Cloud Broker is powered by Azure. So again, massively available anywhere in the world. It really doesn't matter where you are. It just will automatically connect, which is pretty cool, especially when you have people moving around. You're not sure where they're going to be. You don't have to pre-set it up based on where they are. If you then click into one of those machines, you have the ability to take a look at some specific information about that PC. So you can still do the three major kind of deployment options at the top there, the full image, application, or driver, and you can do that from the full group list as well if you want to do a batch of machines. But this page will show you, again, a little bit more about that machine, and as well as the installed software on there. So if you were then to click on a machine, you could give it an uninstall. There's also a message history down there at the bottom as well. But again, really the cool piece about this management piece here, you can see some information about a machine, but really pushing, again, full images to a machine for that full wipe reload. Just apps, again, local or cloud for any of these. If you want to push Chrome to someone halfway around the world, or you want to push Office or anything in between, scripts as well, you can do that too. I'll be going into a little bit more detail about the apps and also the drivers here in a moment, but this upper ribbon is where you'll see those UI options. So it's really designed to be something that you just install the client, the machines pop up here really easy, and it's super easy to click into a machine and run a deployment. You don't have to have a lot of deep technical knowledge to get started. It's really just kind of click through the UI. As part of that application management, we now have this software management component of the console here. You simply click on the left, and this is also powered by that same agent. It's also possible to do it local or cloud, so it's kind of all unified in how it's built. And here you can see all the different types of software that's installed across your environment. So you want to see, how many instances of a given app are installed up there. Maybe you have, something like Acrobat. You want to know how many licenses you consume, those types of things. You can see that right through here. You also have the ability to right-click on a given endpoint end, or I should say a given app, and then have it removed. So again, you're thinking, why is that app still out in my environment? You have a really easy way of managing and removing that app right through this list over here. And once again, similar idea. If you have a lot of software, this is certainly not a small amount here, but if you have a lot and you're trying to search, you can just simply see and then you'll have an idea about everywhere that app exists out in your environment. So once again, it's kind of this idea that there's an agent, powers various aspects of the console, and you don't have to necessarily worry about where that person is. So the person goes on vacation, they come home, changes connection type, and you can do all the same operations right here through the console. Another cool feature that Smart Deploy is releasing, I believe it's this week, is actually patch management. So this has been really requested over the last, well, forever, as far as I know, since I've been here, but patch management really kind of closes the loop in terms of the feature set that Smart Deploy offers. So now in terms of doing full images, apps, and drivers, those are big, then again, closes that loop with patch management. So now you can see the different statuses of machines out there, make sure that everything is compliant. Obviously, security is huge and will continue to be in the future. So this is just a nice, easy way of seeing which machines are out there and what their status is in terms of updates. And then you can simply right-click and say, update, and it will make sure those machines are fully patched. Once again, this is coming out in the latest version of Smart Deploy, which I think you'll be seeing here later this week. So stay tuned for that, certainly. Switching gears on you again one more time. So drivers, since I've been here, since I think really the beginning of Smart Deploy, the driver management of Smart Deploy has been one of the biggest crowd pleasers. And I think the reason for that is it's so self-contained. It's simply a way you can download a driver pack and you can just dive right in. I also can date myself with Ghost. I used that about 10 years ago as well. And I remember having to build out a separate image for every different machine type, which was every week because it needed different drivers. But with this, simply search for the machine type you want, and it will download them and completely handle it for you. And you can use your existing image and everything else without having to make any changes. Or let's say that your manager stops by and puts a new machine on your desk that you've never seen before. Just download the latest platform pack and away you go. Just like the other features, you can do this as part of a deployment, regardless if it's local or cloud, and you can discreetly push these platform packs to anybody in the world. So it doesn't matter where somebody is, you can make sure that their machine's fully up to date, both on the Windows Update side through patch management and now on the driver side too. We pride ourselves in making this really easy to use, and a lot of customers never open the packs, never need to. We keep them up to date for you. But if you're the type of person who is interested to see what's in there, you want to look at it, these packs are fully customizable. You can edit them, take a look, and this is an example of which one of these would look like. So you can see the update history in there. You can see that little WMI query down below, and it's how we match up a given machine to the pack that needs to go to. But you can also see that we have pretty inclusive packs here. So everything from the BIOS flash to the chipset to the audio and everything in between. So once again, this is designed to be just fire and forget, but you can update it. So let's say you need an LTE driver, 5G card, you can certainly add those drivers right here pretty easily. So I recommend to everybody to get started with the trial. That's certainly my side of the conversation here. I'm one of the sales engineers, and so if you do begin a trial with us, go down that road. I hope we'll have the pleasure of working together, me and my team. So I hope to hear from you soon. And with that, I'll pass it over to Heidi.
Thank you, Austin. Wonderful. Yes, just like Austin said, the fully functioning trial of Smart Deploy is available at smartdeploy.com/download. There's also a more detailed version of the demo, the actual live demo of Smart Deploy. We do that every Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific time. So you can register for that event at smartdeploy.com/demo. Again, that is an end-to-end process walkthrough of the product. So that's another great follow-on if this little preview wasn't quite enough for you and you'd like to learn more. So go ahead and register for that. Before we jump into the Q&A, I do want to announce our raffle winner. So this person will be receiving a 25 machine Smart Deploy Pro subscription, and the winner today is Will Glenn. Congratulations, Will. We will be in touch. Thanks for joining us today. And with that, we have just a minute left here of our 30 minutes. We'll jump into Q&A right away. But again, we'll stick around for a few minutes to answer questions. If you need to jump, watch your inbox this week for a link to the recording. Thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to the opportunity to work with you. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in here to the Q&A. We've got a bunch of questions coming in. Someone is asking, specifically with the demo you were doing, Austin, will the users need to be connected on VPN to push out the deployments and images?
No, you don't need a VPN. So if you have if you're inside an office, it will just use a local network. And if you're outside of the office, it doesn't matter, where that is, it actually uses a Azure-based connections instead. So you'll switch over to a cloud-based component. And one detail that I didn't mention in the demo is we have this cloud broker piece coupled up with a cloud storage provider. And together, that's able to deliver those files anywhere without the need for a VPN.
Wonderful. Thank you. And another question here, can you remotely uninstall applications?
Yeah, there's two ways to do it. If you click on a given machine, you can look at the apps on that machine and remove it. Or if you go to the software management piece, you can remove that app across your environment. So let's say you don't want anybody to use Firefox, you can pull that app across the board.
Great, thank you. Angel wants to know, does it have to be a physical machine to host the Smart2Play console, or can the console be hosted on a VM?
Our recommendation is always to put the console on a physical PC if you can. You're able to put the virtualization software on there at the same time. That makes your environment as streamlined as it can be. That said, we certainly understand that some environments aren't possible. And we have plenty of customers who have the console in ESX, ESXi, or vSphere in those places. So definitely supported, definitely possible. If it's a toss-up, go with the physical machine.
Just one other thing to add is a lot of times customers are making bootable USB sticks, and I don't know how often they work super well going from the virtualization software back to a host to talk to a USB stick or a DVD or something like that. Just something else to consider, but as Austin was alluding to, just make sure if you're going to virtualize it, you need a virtual machine as a reference point for Smart2Play anyway, and now you're getting virtualization inside of virtualization. And I think from a usability perspective, our customers can kind of get hung up on that, and the technical debt of trying to do that outweighs the practicality of just grabbing a machine. But you can get it to work, it's just more work to make it work.
Great, thank you. Adnan wants to know, can you remote lock out users, like a terminated user?
Yeah, there's a script in the library for that. And there's different ways or sort of thresholds or what people will consider good enough for locking somebody out. What we have in there is not a full Department of Defense crazy wipe that they would need, but it's enough to be able to disable a user. Basically, there's a script that would go out and change the master boot record, so it's not going to boot into Windows, and so they can't turn the machine on and go and take a look, but the data still happens to be on the disk. We can help you with further customizations if you have more advanced requirements from that, but just like Austin was showing, whether you want to do an application deployment or execute a script, like there's even a library with several in there, and you can make your own. Many customers actually prefer making their own as opposed to like the platform packs. They just want us to do it for them. We can help you with those things too, but yeah, existing in the application pack or scripts library basically is a script to be able to do that, and unfortunately that is become a reality and a useful feature for our customers to remotely disable an employee they may need to separate from the company. And yeah, it's all in box.
Great, thanks, Spencer. Kip would like to know, how often are platform packs updated?
All the time. It's a daily thing. Technically, they're driven by customer service request, but there's like the top 100 devices take care of probably 80% of the demand, and so we stay on those all the time without customers asking, to be honest. We go through big refreshes as soon as, say, Intel releases a new version of a chipset, then those are really busy time periods. But it's pretty straightforward. If you do want one updated or a net new one created, you basically submit a ticket to have that done. You submit a file that's, WMI output of the device that you want the pack made. We make it, notify you when it's done, and away you go.
Great, thank you. And specific to the cloud deployment capability, Rubens would like to know, what does it take to deploy large multiple gig images on a brand new laptop that's been directly shipped to a user's home from the manufacturer? I think this was the scenario that Fulvio described, so he might even have some insight here. But Spence, do you have kind of a ballpark number there that people can expect?
Was the question around time or duration?
Yeah, how long would it take?
I'll tell you this, you're going to laugh, but it will beat the FedEx truck every time. So the 24-hour SLA is, we'll beat that. I see stuff commonly like in our office, less than an hour, 30 minutes is common. Keep in mind bandwidth, keep in mind how thick your image is, keep in mind how fast the endpoint is. If you're doing this to a home user over their Wi-Fi, what's their network looking like? So the caveat is it could be 30 minutes to 3-4 hours. It really depends, honestly. But we've got a lot of customers who, some customers who their internet connection is actually better than their internal network. So even pushing something locally is not as fast as from the cloud. I hope that helps. It'll beat the FedEx truck. That's my kind of joke answer, and the cost and time of that, and the logistics of boxing something up and taking it to the UPS store or whatever. But 30 minutes to 3 hours is a good ballpark, I would say.
And I'll add this on to Spencer's answer too. It actually can handle minor internet interruptions as well. So if you do have someone who has a slow internet connection, and we're talking several hours, maybe overnight type situation, it can handle some of those little drops. So it's pretty robust.
That's a good point. And when we did optimize for cloud, the packages are split up differently than they would be for an on-prem deployment. So like the image file itself is split up into roughly 300 megabyte chunks. And so if it goes to download that part and it fails, you don't have to start over and download your 10 gig WIM again. You can just get that additional part. So there's a lot built in to make that work. I mean, when we first started in on this, customers were like, I can't even get Netflix to stream a DVD to my house. How am I going to get my 10 gig image to go anywhere? And we've been surprised about the gains that have been made to be successful doing this globally. So give it a shot. And again, like we mentioned, the trial is fully functioning, and we can help you through proof of concept. So you'll be able to see pretty quick on whether it's meeting your expectations.
Wonderful. Great. Well, we have a lot of questions coming in. We are going to need to go ahead and wrap this for today. If we didn't get to your question, we will absolutely follow up with you. Thank you again for being here, and watch your inbox for a link to that recording later this week. Thank you so much, everyone.